This is a picture of the hearse leaving Parkland Hospital with President Kennedy's body.
A motorcade is now going from Parkland Hospital to Love Field. A police officer in a motorcycle with red lights, followed by a bus, which bears the sign Official Party. They are proceeding toward Love Field at this time. The lights are on in the motorcade as in a funeral.
There are people in dead silence. A crowd with pity, sorrow, horror, and shame in its heart. There's nothing left to be said. This is Bob Husker reporting from Parkland Hospital for KRLD News.
This is Ed Hogan of WFAA Television in Dallas, Texas. We are standing on the grounds of Parkland Hospital, where President Kennedy was brought just a few hours ago and has died, as most of you have already know. We want to possibly talk to some of the people here who are standing. What is your name, please?
Mrs. Quincy Adams.
Mrs. Quincy, are you from Dallas, Miss Adams?
Yes.
How does this affect you?
Well, it's just a complete shock, and I think it means that doom for our country.
Well, it's a terrible thing, and it's shaken up and shocked everybody.
Well, it has, and I think Dallas will never get over this.
Thank you very much.
I just think it's one of the most terrible things that's ever happened.
It certainly is that, and thank you so much for speaking with us.
Well, I just can't see why anybody would want to shoot Mr. Kennedy for all the things he's done for us.
We now call in Walter Evans, who has an additional report to make from the WFAA News Cruiser.
We don't know for sure because none of the White House staff knows for sure, but probably at this moment, this country has a new president. Vice President Lyndon Johnson was whisked away from Parkland Hospital about 1 o'clock to some secret location, and we've just been told that the purpose of whisking him away was for the purpose of officially swearing him in and making him the new president of the United States. Just what President Johnson's status is or what his location is at this moment, nobody knows. He apparently had with him when he left at least 2 or more Secret Service men and 1 administrative assistant. They were taken somewhere, probably in the city of Dallas, for the swearing in, but where that is, we don't know. I see our Fort Worth newsman, Fred Hatton, who's on the scene. He's just come running up to the wagon. Fred, what's the situation?
Walter, they are going to swear the vice president in as president at Love Field at this time.
We've just been told that Vice President Johnson will be sworn in at Love Field within the next few minutes. We'll try to bring you details of that event as they happen. Walter Evans reporting from Parkland Hospital. We're now going to the airport.
We have received a report that Vice President Lyndon Johnson is to be sworn in as President of the United States momentarily at Dallas Love Field. We also had a report on the motorcade that was approaching that area.
The bronze casket was put on Air Force One, the President's plane.
Mrs. Kennedy came in without assistance. Her hose on both legs was virtually saturated with blood. There was also a quantity of blood on her dress.
Vice President Johnson was in the compartment of the plane, the front part of which carried President Kennedy's body at the time. He squeezed in as many people in the compartment as would fit, and 1 photographer, the official White House photographer, Federal Judge Sarah T. Hughes of Dallas, swore in Lyndon Johnson as President of the United States. Judge Hughes, who was herself appointed by President John Kennedy, was crying as she performed the ceremony. The ceremony began, and Lyndon Johnson repeated after Judge Sarah T. Hughes,
I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. And help me God.
After the swearing-in ceremonies, President Johnson reportedly kissed Mrs. Kennedy and then his wife. And then he said, and these are the only words he is reportedly to have uttered after the swearing-in ceremonies, "Let's get this plane back to Washington."
The United States of America now has a new president. President Lyndon Baines Johnson.
I've just received word that Lyndon Johnson has been sworn in as President of the United States. More background material on that in just a few moments from New York. I'll repeat, Lyndon Johnson is now President of the United States. He was sworn in just a few minutes ago at Love Field.
So it's a very solemn President Lyndon B. Johnson who now, along with the widowed Mrs. Jacqueline Kennedy and his wife, are now en route back to Washington aboard Air Force One.
The plane carrying the president's body is now turning around at the end of the runway here at Love Field and is about to take off.
On the rear of the jet is an American flag, significant of the office of the President of the United States. The President is now leaving Dallas, Texas. This, one of the blackest days in the history of the United States.
May I have your name, please, sir?
My name is Abraham Zapruder.
Mr. Zapruder?
Zapruder, yes, sir.
Zapruder. And would you tell us your story, please, sir?
I got out and about a half hour earlier, getting to a good spot to shoot some pictures. And I found a spot, one of these concrete blocks that I have down near that park near the underpass. And I got on top there. There was another girl from my office. She was right behind me. And as I was shooting, as the president was coming down from Houston Street making his turn, it was about halfway down there, I heard a shot. And he slumped to the side like this. Then I heard another shot or two. I couldn't say it was one or two. And I saw his head practically open up, all blood and everything. And I kept on shooting. That's about all. I'm just sick, kid.
I think that pretty well expresses the entire feelings of the whole world. You have the film in your camera. We'll try
yes, I brought it on the studio. Yeah.
We'll try to get that processed and have it as soon as possible. Right now, we have videotape. Well, let's see. We don't know the condition of Connolly now, do we?
No, we don't. He was in...
He is all right. Good. The condition of Governor Connolly is covered in a statement from Julian Reed, his press secretary.
The governor is just finishing up in the operating room. He has been in there since 1:30, which means he will have almost 4 hours in the operating room.
Here in downtown Dallas, there is an extra edition of a newspaper out, and it is very abundant on the streets. It says simply, "President Dead." The atmosphere in Dallas, which is at this time wind-blown, is one of a crowded street. The streets are jammed with automobiles, and the sidewalks with people who are just standing there. Just standing, occasionally reading a newspaper, talking to one another without expression on their faces. And it's a solemn day in Dallas.
This is the way the city of Dallas is today. People are walking the streets. No one is doing any work. Everyone is sitting and talking and wondering how in the world it could happen in the city of Dallas. How could it happen here?
Andrews, Air Force One. Air Force One, Andrews, go ahead, sir. Roger, the president is on board. The body is on board, and Mrs. Kennedy is on board. Bright Crown Air Force One, volunteer requesting a patch with Mrs. Rose Kennedy. You have her standing by?
Roger, Roger. I'm going to put Mrs. Rose Kennedy on the line now.
Hello? Yes, Mrs. Kennedy, I have Mr. Johnson for you here. Ms. Kennedy?
Yes. Yes, Mr. President. Yes.
I wish to God there was something that I could do, and I wanted to tell you that we were grieving with you.
Yes, well, thank you very much. I know you love Jack and he loves you. Yes.
Love and prayers to all of you.
Yes, well, thank you, Lady Bird. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Goodbye.
¿A qué edad fue elegido Kennedy como diputado por el Partido Demócrata? 29 años, 34 años, 49 años. Continuamos. A la edad de 29 años, John F. Kennedy fue elegido diputado por el Partido Demócrata. Regresamos.
There will be no more reports on the condition of Governor John Connally until 7:30 tomorrow morning, Dallas time. Last word, the governor is in some considerable pain, but is resting comfortably and has not yet been told of the late President Kennedy's death. A man who can eloquently sum up the feelings of what has occurred in Dallas, Texas today is the Dallas mayor, Earl Cabell, who gave us this statement earlier tonight. So here is the mayor of Dallas, Earl Cabell, with a statement.
Tonight, Dallas is shocked and stricken with grief because of the assassination of our president, John F. Kennedy. To no other guest in the history of Dallas has such a spontaneous and enthusiastic welcome been extended, as was the case for our president. Yet, the irrational act of a single man has tragically marred the spirit generated in Dallas today. All possible security precautions were taken by our police force on their own and in collaboration with the Secret Service. It was a thing that could not happen, and yet it did happen. Mrs. Cabell and I join our city in extending our sympathies to the Kennedy family and to say that our prayers are for them as they are for our new chief executive and our nation and the world.
Air Force One, Air Force Command Post, over.
Please advise press that normal press coverage, including live TV, will be allowed at the base.
During the flight, arrangements were made to take President Kennedy's body to Bethesda Naval Hospital by ambulance upon arrival at Andrews.
Behind it come Mrs. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy. They are to ride in the ambulance, normally to Bethesda Hospital, where the body will remain for the night.
As President Johnson arrived at Andrews Air Force Base tonight, he made remarks to newsmen gathered there.
I know that the world shares the sorrow that Mrs. Kennedy and her family bear. I will do my best. That is all I can do. I ask for your help and God.
For a man who must feel an almost crushing burden of awesome responsibility on his shoulders right now, the new president looks composed, resolved in this sad and terrible hour in the history of the country.
Here comes Oswald down the hall again.
You find that rifle just as fast as you people have been given, but I emphatically deny these charges.
Oswald has hustled through a doorway. He says he has nothing against anybody. He has not committed any act of violence.
A pretty clear indication of the way things are going at the Homicide Bureau, Dallas Police Headquarters, is the fact that Justice of the Peace David Johnston is still standing by in the eventuality that further charges are filed against the suspect. It's expected that charges of assassination of the president will be filed against Lee Oswald before midnight. From Police Headquarters, this is Vic Robertson reporting for WFAA News.
We have been able to place this man in the building, on the floor, at the time the assassination occurred. We have been able to establish the fact that he was at the window that the shots were fired from. We have been able to establish the fact that he did order a weapon that is similar and we feel is the weapon that was used. It establishes beyond a reasonable doubt in our mind that here is our man with our guns.
Lee Harvey Oswald, 24-year-old admitted pro-communist, has now been charged in Dallas with the assassination of the president.
He's been charged with both killing Officer Tippit and John F. Kennedy.